Ziya Meral is a Turkey analyst and joins us now in the studio. Ziya, thank you so much for being here. So as far as we can see from those pictures, the demonstrations appear to have dispersed. The people have either moved somewhere else or gone on. What's going to happen now for the Prime Minister?
What's going to happen is not really clear. Prime Minister mentioned yesterday that he will be meeting with a group representing protesters. However, the news that we saw last night, the police clampdown on protests in Taksim, meant that some of these protesters are refusing to meet with the Prime Minister. The government seems quite set and expressing a strong stand and is asking for an end to protests. But at the same time, the public grievances or the factors behind the protests are still pretty much there.
The Prime Minister has taken a hard line on this. I can't agree with you that the Deputy Prime Minister and the President have. They tried to be conciliatory in the beginning. Has this isolated him, Prime Minister Erdogan, in any way?
Well, I think it is difficult to assess simply because we saw three distinct phases of these protests, and with that three distinct phases of government response. The initial phase of the protests were about the reordering of the Taksim Square, then it became a much more emotional outburst of protest against Erdogan, and now the third phase, which is the chaotic phase. We're not really sure what is exactly happening, who's protesting on what. Similarly, the government went from being really confused about what's happening to giving contradictory messages, some of reconciliation, some of a stronger stand, and then now a unified stand behind Erdogan and his policies.
And so moving forward from here, I know it's very difficult to tell what's going to go on, but he's organised rallies this weekend in particular. Is he going to use this somehow as part of his push towards the next election?
Well, yes, in 7 months Turkey will see the start of the election season. The AKP constituency has already retreated back in supporting him out of fear of what this protest might mean. So in terms of the long-term political implications, we do not forecast any change in voting patterns, simply because more than 80% of the protesters at Gezi Park mentioned that there's no political party they find themselves in alignment with, so they have no place to channel their grievances behind actually expressing their voice, because their voice is also an expression of the failure of Turkish opposition, which is not able to reach to this disillusioned cohort. So politically, we do not see a major difference of the Gezi in terms of the outcomes of elections in 7 months. However, in the long run, I think the Turkish democratic culture has been harmed a lot by the strong government stand, and also Turkish international standing and branding has suffered so much.
Particularly where the markets are concerned. Bob, I know you...
Well, I agree with that, and let me just start by saying that the last 3, 5 and 7 years we have been very positive on the economic and political development in Turkey. So we've been very positive on the market and the economy. Obviously, we're very concerned, like all investors, about current developments. One thing that does concern me is obviously the impact on foreign capital flow, because if these protests continue, that is going to discourage foreign capital inflow, and let's be blunt, Turkey needs that foreign capital inflow, and therefore the development of the political situation is absolutely critical for foreign investors. And do you see, I'm assuming that give it 1 to 2 months these protests will calm down, but am I being naive?
No, you're not naive at all. I think we have to think about long-term fluctuations in terms of foreign investment into Turkey and the long-term attractability, if you like, of the Turkish market. The reports that just came out yesterday showed more than 3% growth in the first quarter in Turkish economy.
Which was a very good result.
Which was higher than what was anticipated, and I think Turkey is still an attractive market for so many investors. Protests are normal in so many places. What we have seen in terms of numbers is not a revolution, it's not a Turkish spring, it's no derailing of the regime or rule of law.
And that's an important point that a couple of our correspondents via Twitter pointed out, that why is it's riots when it's Sweden and the UK, but it's revolution when it's Turkey, and I guess because its position between East and West makes it that much more.
Well, let's not forget we had a riot in London last night.
Well, exactly, and we didn't call it a British spring. Last 10 years, I can summarize all of my media interviews about Turkey with a single answer I gave, which is, no, that's a wrong question. Simply because so much of what is being discussed about Turkey is actually reflecting about perceptions and anxieties about Turkey, but not really where Turkey is, not where the issues are.
Well, one thing we do know, British spring lasts about a day anyway, just like the British summer. Now, I do want to move on to your point about where Turkey is going, and you make some very good point about the evolution of the debate. Some concerns that it's turning into some form of theocracy along Iranian lines. Then there is the post-religious perspective that Turkey is now becoming quite autocratic in terms of its leadership, going into a Russia. I'm most interested in your point that Turkey is becoming like the USA. Now, what do you mean by that?
Exactly. What I mean by that is Turkey is witnessing culture wars. For the last 10 years, we have seen a polarization of Turkey, similar to US in terms of Republican and Democratic lines. You either vote for one or the other, even though you might agree with certain policies. The allegiances reflect a close mixture of religiosity, cultural affinity, and geographical locationing, and that's what has happened. Some people think Obama is a closet Muslim, and other things is the best American ever. Some people think Erdogan is a sultan, the others think is the representation of democracy.
In the States who call him a communist. I can
Well,
assure you of that.
exactly, and some people do think actually Erdogan sold Turkey to the IMF, as actually Turkey just paid off its IMF debts. What we are witnessing is an immense culture war in Turkey, so the discourses that are used are not really a reflection of where things are. One amazing thing people have missed on the protest was, in the survey done among protesters this week, only 9% of them asked for a military intervention, which is a phenomenally low rate. On top of that, there's not a single general on
isn't
television.
That part of the history of Turkey, the fact that it A, has such a long history of military intervention, and B, has such an enormous military.
Exactly,
I mean, it's one of the top 5 in the world in terms of number of
but now what
largest army in NATO.
Exactly, but now what I'm saying is, for the first time, we're seeing no place for military, no role played by it. There is no angry generals on television in Turkey, which would have happened even 5 years ago. So in the long run, what we are seeing is a maturation of Turkish democracy. All of the signs are in place that actually this protest is reflecting a disillusioned cohort not represented by the Turkish opposition parties, and this will give birth to new politics in Turkey.
Yeah.
I was just going to observe, you make the correlation with the United States, and yes, there is this huge political divide in the United States between the Republicans and the Democrats, but we do have a very strong opposition in the United States. And surely one of the issues in Turkey is actually the opposition needs to be stronger for democracy to really be effective.
Sure,
and you know, you've got a weak opposition there.
Oh, no weak. We have an absent opposition. I completely agree. I think all we need is now a Turkish Tea Party emerging, and I think there are some signs of it coming up as well. However, even if you look at US politics, the emotive aspect of it, the cultural language of it, and mutual loathing that follows these discussions, and even a discussion on healthcare or fiscal policy becomes a debate about cosmic American values. Similar things are at play in Turkey too. I'm half joking when I compare Turkey to US, simply because I'm tired of people comparing Turkey to Iran or Egypt and other countries. Turkey is Turkey. Let Turkey be Turkey, and let's analyze it on its own terms. And when we do, what we are seeing is a positive picture in the long run. Turkey is much better than where it is now ever before.
I agree.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for that. Bob, you stay with us. Ziya, nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed for your very interesting insight as well, especially on those US comparisons. And Ziya Meral, who's a Turkey analyst.